Order. Has the meeting been advertised? Do we have a quorum present? Thank you, ma'am. Our first order of business is the approval of the February 19th, 2024 meeting minutes. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Or a second?
Second.
Open floor is open for discussions and discussion, questions, criticisms, suggestions, typographical comments that won't insult somebody else. Seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, like sign. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Like sign if disagree. Seeing none. Do we have anyone who wishes to address the board this morning before we start? We always open our meetings so that the community has an opportunity to speak up. I see faces and no accolades. Okay, so we'll move on. Today we have on our agenda two pilots, then a discussion on safety protocols for the board and the community here present. So we'll start with the first pilot, the Milltown Residential Project. This is a resolution authorizing the Health Education and Housing Facilities Board of the City of Chattanooga, Tennessee to take title to certain real and personal property, execute a lease agreement to lease such property to Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprises for the Milltown Residential Project for operation of a multi-family housing family, and to enter into an agreement for payment in lieu of taxes, of ad valorem taxes with the company. Do we have someone who wants to speak to that? And I know we have two. We'll probably do them. Do you want to talk about both of them?
If possible, yes, sir.
Yeah, because I looked at the presentation, it has two in there, so I think it might be good to do that. So what we're going to do is we'll have a separate motion for the second pilot, but there's two facilities or business facilities, buildings, and he'll cover that with you.
We'll read that second resolution caption whenever we come up to that as well.
Correct.
Yes.
But the education part is going to be
Bit
done
the same.
together.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Jake Toner, and I'm here. I drive a real estate development and affordable housing for Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprise. I'm here to present on two separate projects for the pilot. We have been through city council and gotten city council approval, and we've been through county commission and gotten county commission approval on both of these projects. And I'll just do a quick presentation and overview of the projects. The two projects in question are the 1805 South Lyerly project, which is 16 units. That is an actual rendering of the project. It's not an elevation that may or may not happen. These are actual permitted drawings. This is the Milltown Apartments. This is the rendering, again, the actual apartments of the front of the buildings as they face 18th Street. Quick overview of the apartments. The Lyerly at 1805 South Lyerly, there are three buildings and 16 units. The 10-plex, a quadplex, and a duplex. And then the Milltown, there will be four buildings, a 12-plex, a 10-plex, and two 6-plexes, 16 units in the Lyerly development, and 34 units in the Milltown apartment. This is the rent mix of Lyerly. And what we're asking for in the pilot is that we restrict 50% of the units at 80% or less rents. Mm-hmm. This is the standard pilot that we've asked for every project the C&E has brought before your board. Also, in each of these developments, there are home units, which are home units are federal money that goes down through the city, and we restrict them at lower than 80%. C&E tries to keep everything at 80% or lower. We ask that we only restrict 50% of the units in case something goes wrong with the projects. This is the same concepts that I brought before you, any other application that we've had.
So that's what I was going to clarify. So it's being funded at 50%, but if you can keep it higher than that, that's your objective, correct? The units that will be subsidized, you're trying to keep it, you're trying to keep more than 50% of the units?
Yes, a higher percentage,
Right.
not a higher rent, exactly.
Correctly. And so my question was, and I appreciate how you're doing that. What do you think is a realistic, do you think it's a 75 or an 80% that you can achieve with this, or do you really know yet?
I think these rents are going to be the rents that we start out with.
Okay,
Everything's budgeted, and these rents will cover our debt payments and the requirement of the loan documents. Everything is driven by how much we borrow and what kind of coverage we have to have over that expected
right,
payment.
right.
At the bottom of this slide is just an indicator. This is from November of 23. Downtown submarket rents are at $1,439 for a one bed and $2,100 for a two bed. It's changed a little bit since then, but that's actually, I think, probably a fairly conservative estimate. That's just to comp out against what we have in the chart. Approximately the same rents or rent levels in the Milltown development with 8 home units and then 26 at that approximate 80% rent. Again, asking for 50%, a commitment of 50% at 80% or less in the buildings. These are the project budgets with sources and uses. And in summary, the request is to commit at least 50% of the units to households at 80% less of area median income in exchange for the pilot. The estimated initial annual cost savings of the pilot to the projects will be $34,000 and $59,000 for the Milltown Apartments. The only way to replace this money without the pilot is to raise rents. Without the pilot, C&E cannot build this project and hold these rent levels. This is the but-for test. And I've said this in front of city and county, and each time I've been in front of you, this is by far the key piece in these affordable housing projects, this pilot is.
Right. What effect does the federal money have on this? You mentioned it comes through the city, Tori.
What effect? The federal money comes through in the form of home funds from HUD through the city and allocation to the projects. This allows C&E to maintain a certain number of units at 50 or 60% AMI rents. So we have one step lower.
Okay, so the federal money basically works on the reducing it further down below the 50% level.
Below the 80%
I mean,
level.
80%, yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's,
It gets confusing when you're talking about percentage of units and percentage of area median income.
Right.
It gets confusing.
okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a
Yes.
question. Thank you for providing the projected budget. The building costs was a question of mine. Do you have current values of the undeveloped land? Because I know that the way that the pilot is written, there will be a requirement from the assessor's office to appraise the current undeveloped land. Do you know the values of that?
I plugged in a market value on Bailey. I think let's flip back. I'm sorry. I mixed up my projects. I got cross-contaminated here on different projects we're doing. Bailey is not this. Bailey was approved previously. That is the actual acquisition value of the land. And that's the nearest or closest comp to market value that I can give you. And on Milltown, that is an estimate of market value because the project, most of the land was either contributed by the developer in the area for an immaterial amount, $1,000 was the transaction value. So we plugged $500,000 for the approximate land value at market rates.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And then the other piece of property in the Milltown development was contributed by the city and the county.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman. Thank you as well for being here. A couple of just broad questions. Do you propose building these simultaneously or one then the other?
That's a good question. We will probably stagger the starts of these, maybe 2 months, depending on how the financing comes through. We have loan commitments, but just due to how the timing and the process works, we're starting a third project hopefully next month, and then we'll start Lyerly right after that, and we'll close on that with the same financial institution, and then we'll follow the next one hopefully within 2 or 3 months.
Okay, thank you. And in terms of budget, in as much as the timing is, a little bit into the future, is there a contingency in terms of supply chain as well as price,
So
inflation, things of that
we have a
nature?
hard commitment. I don't have a signed construction contract yet, but we do have a hard commitment on the Lyerly project. And we've got as firm as we can get of a commitment where our contractor has gone through and reviewed all of our numbers and said he's still good on the Milltown. And I also have a construction contingency in the budget.
Okay. And I apologize, I'm not really familiar with that area. What is currently there? Just older housing that's,
So on the Lyerly project, C&E purchased 4 blighted properties, and they needed to be knocked down. They were vacant, basically drug houses. And then the other property's vacant.
okay, very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions?
The other question that you normally ask me, and I'm prepared today because I wasn't prepared last time, was what incomes coincide to 80% area median income. And a one-person family is $44,600. A two-person is $51,000. A three-person is 57, and I can't read my handwriting. And a four-person is 63,700. And then the home units correspond to a one-person family at 33,480, a two-person at 38,220, a three-person at 43,20, and a four-person at 47,760. These do fluctuate and are adjusted as the area median income adjusts, but I pulled these numbers for February for last
But
month.
that's the AMI, which you're looking at 80% of on this.
So the 44,600 is 80%.
Okay.
That is the rent or the income that you'll need to qualify as a one-person household.
Okay.
And for the home units, that people always ask that too, it's for a one-person household, it's 33,480 is the income that you would need to qualify.
Okay. Any other questions that you want to point out that we didn't ask that we normally do? And if you're careful, we'll make you staff
I was just
assistant.
embarrassed last time.
No, don't ever be embarrassed because we do the same thing. Okay, so,
One thing I was going to point out, at least in the pilot agreement, there's a specific term that the payments in lieu of taxes will be paid here under this to the city and the county, and it covers the school taxes for the entire term, correct, sir?
Yes.
is this a 10 or a 20? This is a 10.
This is actually 20.
The elderly.
Yes, sir.
And there is a clawback provision in the agreement here in the event that y'all fail to meet the affordability as we
We'll
go
comply. Yeah, we are aware of that, and C&E will comply.
Yes.
And C&E is also audited by the city for all of the home units that are, so we're constantly reporting more than a pilot submittal without home units would be reported.
Correct. Okay.
Thank you. Just wanted to point that out.
Yes, sir.
Question?
No question. I got a comment. The comment is that 44,000 is, of course, most people in poverty can't afford that, so you know that that's gonna be, we're gonna push some people out, elderly, some people that are impoverished because they just certainly can't afford those rates. I mean, that's just maybe a part of the process because we have inflation and things cost, so I understand, but the realities are that the average American can't afford. I had a bachelor's degree and I was making $30,000 a year at Blue Cross, probably making $15 an hour. So, you know, as a person that is in the community, is for the community, I just hate to hear that because I know that so many people, even smart people, even people with education, are not going to be able to meet those standards.
When you, when you say pushed out, what do you mean by pushed out?
I mean.
They will not be able to afford to go into this. They won't be pushed out of something else, though. Is that, I want to make sure I understand what your
I
comment
mean
is.
that these areas that we're talking about typically used to
Okay,
contain housing for people that were low income. And so with these models that we are now implementing, not just this model, but these models now, they're gonna impact people. That's all that I mean. And because financially, it's just gonna be a hardship. I mean, the way the world looks, we headed, so, I mean, this Janika theology, nobody else. But I think we're headed towards another recession anyway. So I just think financially, everybody is gonna have to do what they gotta do to make it work, whether that be to combine incomes and to try to live together. But it certainly is gonna impact the dynamics.
take that and direct this, because I've been involved with C&E for a long, long time in different ways. And I think that, like the Housing Authority, C&E sees itself as trying to provide housing, and this is more than redeveloping areas that are, let's just say, below standard. So I'm gonna put you on the spot, my friend, since you have notes. How do we respond to that? Now, because I mean, I'm gonna say this. I think she speaks from, and I have a daughter with a master's degree that's making $15 an hour. I mean, she has a master's degree from a known university and can't find a job doing what, she has marine biology and we don't have an ocean here. So, but she has a master's degree and had a great GPA in a high school and a college and can't get a job here. So she couldn't afford this either. How do we achieve, and I know you all look at this, help me with that answer. And I'm not trying to criticize or defend her, but I think it's a valid statement that, you know, 80% of the AMI, there's a whole lot of people below that who are educated.
Yeah, let me answer. Good afternoon, everybody. Martina Guilfoyle, I'm the CEO of C&E. I don't disagree at all with what you're saying, and I think it's important. I'll give you a little ecosystem tutorial here. Obviously, we would love to have our rents be as low as possible. So what happened was during COVID, when the market was flooded with people that were earning a lot more money, our median incomes have gone up. But the people that are earning $15 a year, their incomes haven't gone up. And so you see this big difference between when we opened the Maybell 1 in 2017, our 80% rents or 60% rents were $630. That rent today is now $900. And so one of the challenge C&E has is, I'm not going to tell the people that are still at the Maybell who could afford the $650 a month rent, now I could raise their rents to $900, $950 and still be within the HUD guidelines, but those people, they can't afford it. And so, but it puts pressure on C&E in terms of our operating. How do we make up the difference? And that's a challenge that the board takes seriously, and how we cover that. Every board, we're always talking about what is our market rent. So our market rent isn't the $1,400 and something that downtown is getting. Our rents are somewhere, it depends on the building. One of the answers that we have is at the Maybell, because our costs were what they were, like this budget originally in 2017, we try to do incremental increases. So now it's become our market rents there that were $850 or probably $875 or $900. And the people there that are making $15 an hour can still afford it. One way that we've addressed the challenge is this, not on these, but on the Bailey project, we were able to get project-based vouchers so that somebody can pay 30% of their income and we can get a higher rent. So that's another way. But I think the answer is we need more money. And I don't mean the city needs more money for affordable housing. So the HUD dollars are limited. Now Jake and I are finding out, and Sandra can attest to this, every HUD dollar that you use in a project creates all these set of regulations that get more and more expensive and more difficult to use that money on smaller projects. And so in the Housing Action Plan, they talked about a dedicated source for affordable housing through the Housing Trust Fund or some mechanism that could be unrestricted, more flexible dollars, because it costs what it costs to build. And so we would love to have lower rents, but who's going to make up that difference between what it costs and what rents we're trying to hit? But I think that the challenge that you've so eloquently pointed out, I think, for all of us is, what do we do when median incomes keep going up? And so how many people, to your point, are making $44,000 a year that can afford an 80% apartment? And then what we see is you back out car payments, student loans, and all of a sudden they may qualify for the apartment, but they can't really because they don't have enough income left over to make their rental payment. And I think then you see homelessness is a housing problem. It's an affordable housing problem.
Right.
People can't afford even affordable rents. And I think as a community, it's something that we have to talk about and think about longer term. What's the strategy? How are we going to bring more resources in? Because we're not keeping pace. The number of units, I mean, C&E collectively has over the last, since the Maybell, put about 300 units into operation. And fortunately, 15% of our portfolio is at 30% AMI. So because we take vouchers, because of our cost basis, I mean, we really work hard. But when you were asking about supply issues, insurance issues, I mean, operating costs go up regardless of, with inflation, but our rents can only creep up, and we don't want to have that huge. We are, I think, the strategically community-based board. How do we keep rents affordable? And then how do we get other support to help us do that? Did that answer your question?
Not an answer his question.
Well, I think it explains some of it. I think what you eloquently laid out is that there's a disparity of income. And I think that, I think that the challenge C&E has is making a project work based on cost. And I think the issue that runs tangent to that is that there's a housing cost crisis that doesn't allow the lower income to have the house that C&E or the housing authority or the dwelling, whether it be a house or an apartment or whatever, that they'd like to have. And I think that really gets to the heart of hers, is that, 44, by my own example, 44,000 is, I mean, I'm paying my daughter's apartment, not looking for sympathy, but she doesn't qualify for it, And I think that there's a huge segment of the population that doesn't. One question I was going to ask you, you made a comment, and I don't want to misinterpret what you said, was that during COVID, people made more money or something to that effect. So does that mean that we artificially raised the AMI, and will it come back down? I mean,
Yeah, what I was alluding to was a lot of people moved here. They've discovered Chattanooga is a very desirable place. And so when you work remote, you might have East or West Coast salaries
Okay.
that then came to Chattanooga that increases our median income, whereas our wages may not have risen.
Okay.
And so that has an effect on the raising the median income, even though our workers' salaries may not have increased.
And that's, I think that's what she was saying, you know, by living here all our life, you know, there's always been somewhere for those who were not as fortunate to land, whether it been in what we used to call the project areas, or low-income housing area, and C&E played a big part of that. But now, they don't have that safety net. You either have or you don't have. So while we're tearing down these neighborhoods to put more affordable houses to improve the neighborhood, which is needed, those people
Yeah,
seem
that's-
like they're left out.
And I wanna say, I'm not blaming you.
No.
right? It
No, I
sounds like
understand.
What
I
I
didn't-
hear from you is that you're aware of the what's happening, and you're doing the best you can to feel, which is back to my Janika theology, which is that we just have a problem, and it's not, I'm not pointing a finger, I'm just making a statement that there are gonna be a lot of people that can't afford it. I understand that that's not an issue that you can handle you can address alone. I think, like you said, building stuff costs, everything costs, I understand all of that. But I also recognize that I was just that girl 5 years ago that, you know, wouldn't have been able to, thankfully, I'm in a better place and, you know, God has blessed me. But I have a heart for people that are indigent and that can't, and maybe didn't have the opportunity to have, all the resources that I had. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, and I guess so I'm agreeing with you. And I'm saying it's that to solve that problem, it's resources. Because what someone can afford that earns $15,000 or $20,000 a year that are working at a minimum wage job, which to remind everybody in Tennessee is still $7.25 an hour, and those jobs still exist and people still work at them. Who pays the difference between what that rent is of $500 a month, which is practically unheard of now, but desperately needed, and then who makes up the difference, is I think one of the things that we have to figure out is, that's what I was saying as a community. We've got to address that, or, because the answer shouldn't be the homeless encampment. It's
Exactly.
frankly where so many people are ending up now.
Yeah, and I would like to be able to go to my constituents and not just to present a problem. I would always like to have a solution, whether it is one that's actually in effect or one that the community is looking at working toward. You know, you hate to just go tell somebody, well, you won't have any place to live. If you can't afford it, you gotta move on. So you want to be able to let them know just what you're telling us, that we do understand, but this is the situation that we're dealing with, and we're also considering how it impacts you and what we can do as a community to not put you and leave you behind. So, you know, that's my concern. I know there are things beyond our control, but there are explanations that we can take back to help people to swallow it a little bit better. So thank you for your explanation.
any other questions or comments?
I have one other question, please. So, I was looking back at the proposed rent rates and then also the data provided from Zumper.com. And I understand that the rent rates are also derived from the budget. Were you looking at the 80% of what you identified via Zumper, for the affordability element? So on here it says Zumper.com as of November of '23 A 1-bedroom was $1,439 in the downtown area, 2-bedroom, 2,100. So at 80%, is that where you're deriving these affordable
The,
housing numbers?
the affordable numbers are 80% in the spreadsheet portion. So, a 1,200, 1,195, that's an 80% calculation as allowed by THDA or the Tennessee Housing Development
Okay,
Association. The Zumper numbers are the market rates.
got it.
One other question. Looking at this, it says, according to the Zupperman.com, these average Chattanooga downtown supermarket rents are, for a 2-bedroom in Chattanooga downtown area.
Yes, ma'am.
So why is Lowerly considered
The
the same
downtown is
if it's not
classified as-
downtown?
The downtown is classified as inside the Mountain Bowl, including North
Inside the
Chattanooga.
Mountain Vault?
Inside the mountains, yes, ma'am.
Okay, gotcha.
That's just how they draw the map.
Okay.
Other comments or questions? I believe we have a motion and a second. We don't? You let me get through all of that without a motion and a second.
And
You're
that's
supposed-
just on the first one.
I know. We've covered more than one. Throw something at me or do this.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We had 2 votes for the minutes, but not the first pilot.
We haven't, but I thought we had a motion when I read it. Okay, all right, okay. Okay, we're gonna back up, and then I've read the pilot. The chair would entertain a motion to open discussion on the Milltown residential project.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Second. Now that we've had discussion, is there any further now that we have a proper motion and second, do we have any further discussion? Okay, we'll move to the voting perspective on this one. So all in favor of the Milltown residential project, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Seeing none, that passes. You all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bless you.
I didn't know if he was yelling at me under his breath or coming up his top. Okay, now, we have
He has his
a,
cough drop now, he's good.
now we have a second pilot on the Lyerly Avenue residential project. This is a resolution authorizing the Health Education and Housing Facilities Board of the City of Chattanooga, Tennessee to take title to certain real and personal property, to execute a lease agreement to lease such property to Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprises, Inc., the company, Lyerly Avenue residential project for operation of a multifamily housing facility, and to enter into an agreement for payment in lieu of ad valorem taxes with the company. Chair will entertain a motion on that resolution.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this project that has been discussed with the other one, but we'll make sure we have it.
I was gonna try to let it slide. I just have a question.
Sure.
I just need clarity. Because I don't, you were saying something, I think, about this project is different than other projects in some way.
I referenced the Bailey project by accident, I think.
There's like a financial difference, something that you're asking for that's different in this program, in this, than in other projects. I don't know if it's the 80% thing.
The Bailey project had Chattanooga housing vouchers on it, and these do not. Is that it?
Oh, okay, so,
The Bailey project that we brought previously had Chattanooga housing vouchers, and
These don't.
Lyerly and Milltown do not, and that's not a preference of Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprise. The Chattanooga housing vouchers are limited. So we compete for them when they're available, and so we competed for them at Bailey, and as far as I know, there are no more available, at least in this round.
so then what that would do, because I asked that question, what that means is then that the housing vouchers would allow them to have more rents at or below the 50% level. Where,
Yes, sir. Even lower than what we have
yeah,
right
so
now.
to your point, those kind of like vouchers, it offsets it. So
Right, but they don't have that.
They won't have that here, so
No,
the
ma'am.
rents that you're
That's
going,
exactly what you were saying. That's what I was trying to get
Yeah.
at. That's the difference.
The pilot that we've asked for here is exactly the same on these two
You just don't
projects.
have the other things available.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
But you do have federal funding.
Yes, ma'am.
okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions on the flyer?
Chair, I'd like to make a note just for the board, and for CNE representatives. So I intend to vote in favor of this. However, I wanted to voice that, because there are not Chattanooga Housing Authority vouchers involved with this particular, pilot program. As a real estate broker, I represent many sole proprietor landlords who do single-family property, multifamily property. And these rents seem quite high based on my information, on local comps, based on the area in particular. Now, I understand development costs are very, very high. But a 20-year tax deference seems very generous. I just want to make sure that we're going in the right direction.
Getting our money returned.
So, and that doesn't need a response. It's just a comment about it.
Okay. All right. Other discussion or comments?
Well, I would like to Brian's point, I would just like to say that I think that that's what this board does, and we should view this as an investment in that housing that is going to make it affordable for some folks. Certainly not everyone, right? We're all in agreement on that. And hopefully they'll be coming back with us with a project for those as well.
I'd like to, I wasn't going to say anything, but I'd like to, when we get down to the business, comment on something that we might want to send a message to somebody, and I'll bring it up at that point in time. Okay? All in favor of the Lyerly Avenue project, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign?
I'm opposed.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Just one.
No. So I want to show that you had assumed 6 yeses and one no, yes. Okay, the vote on the resolution passes. Next discussion is on security and evaluation plans. And I think we had brought this up last time in the event of a disaster or of a situation, we would know how to get out, where to go. Do we know who's going to do that, or?
We had Mr. Price here for the council to at least provide that access on here. Your security should be, at least in your public meeting, to tell everybody that is here. Maybe we might ought to tell you that in private in that regard about how to get out.
Okay.
But we will need to at least provide you with access into the council meeting room, which is actually protected. And you would go out either the left door or the right door if you have to evacuate this room for some reason.
Okay.
And then from there, we'll tell you the secret numbers that you need to have in that location.
So then the thing that we need to know is that we use this door or that door.
Correct.
What about the people out here in the audience?
If there are people in the audience, both of those exit doors are available for anyone to be able to leave here during that time. And then there's an exit door there. I'm not sure if everybody from the audience is allowed to go out that door. Usually if there is a security person here with us, they would be directing us how we would leave.
Okay.
But clearly the people here on this podium on there would either go left or right, depending on, probably right here.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, all right.
Chairman, I'm sorry, you say there generally is a security person here?
There generally is a security person here during all the council meetings, I know, in that regard. Yes.
But not in our meeting.
Not usually. If we need one, we'll get one.
Okay. Well, but in that interim, do we need to have a sergeant at arms whose first primary role is for direct that and also contact folks and say, hey, we've got a situation? I mean, we can't assume that someone's going to do it because we're all going to be scrambling, I would imagine.
Yes, sir. Well, at least there would be an announcement by the chair that the meeting is adjourned. If there's a meeting adjourned, at that point in time, people in the audience would be going to the rear. People up here would be going out.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we put together a little protocol that chairman would do this as a piece of paper in front of them, and then whether you or she could notify somebody, that way these people would know what we're gonna do.
Yes. We need to at least tell Maria down there so she's not sitting here by
By
herself.
herself. Okay. With your back to the world. Okay. Other business. As I sat and listened to the questions on the two projects, I think there was a recognition by a number of the people on this board that there may be I don't want to say a crisis, but a dilemma in the community for housing that the Housing Authority and C&E probably recognize more than community volunteers who approve the projects in front of them. And I do think, as Tanika was saying, that when you look at the percentages of the AMI, there used to be a term called working poverty, and probably don't use it anymore. And without telling you my daughter's name, she's probably one of those people because she couldn't afford one of these by a long shot at $15 an hour. And I think maybe where Richard, you were going, and I think is that should we send a comment to the council of our concern to Brian's comments that the city is not just approving pilot projects, it's not just approving housing projects, but that we, from our perspective here, only see a piece of it, but see a need to address projects that can address the needs of the community, whatever they are. And somebody else can word that better than I can, but I think that what you brought up, and I guess I never really thought about it, is that there are people who don't have someone to pay their rent for them.
Right.
And I guess in many ways, you where you are today and where my daughter is having me makes it okay. But where would you be had some things not occurred in your life? And I spent 20 years at Blue Cross, I know what you make. And I supervise people like that. And so I understand it more than you think. I think sometimes you can do things that seem correct, but where we're doing it and what the need is we're not hitting the need. And I think that it might have some weight. Maybe what we should do is draft up something that if we want to mutually sign it to send it to the commission that says, from my perspective and looking at projects the last year, they're good projects. I think they're doing all the best they can to make them financially feasible. And you saw the caveat on there that says, without the pilot, then this project wouldn't be available. And so I think that it shows that there's a need that you can't make it work financially, but there's people in those needs categories that are either homeless or without because theirs isn't being met. And it doesn't fit a formula for a C&E or a housing project, but there's still a need of, I look here on three bedrooms, you think of the single adult families with multiple children that are struggling. And I think that I guess today,
I rent 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, do the laundry and everything for $900.
I think maybe found something that we as a board need to push the city to do to help point out, because they probably know, but there is a homeless crisis and there is a housing crisis that we see and need to be addressed. And if that's something that you all want, I'll work with Phil and come up with some kind of resolution that we can just send as an information to the commission and the mayor, if you want me to do that.
Chair, I think that's valuable that the council knows that their constituents are seeking affordable housing opportunities, and they're putting that on us to review some of those items. But I think it's important to share with them, we're reviewing it and it still doesn't appear affordable.
I will say this, I met with the mayor 2 months ago on a number of things, and we talked about things I was doing. This one came up. I do know that he has public housing high on his radar screen, but I don't know if we have enough at the bottom to take care of some of the most vulnerable, which I think we need to do. Any other comments or?
Well, I would like to say that I'm very proud of this board because we do have varying degrees of opinions, and which I think are all well respected and well placed. I think it's very obvious to everyone that this board takes its fiduciary responsibilities to the taxpayers, because even though we're appointed by our respective council, we ultimately are beholden to me, in my eyes, to the taxpayers and the constituents of our respective districts. But as I say, I thought this particular program is going to hit distinct demographic needs assistance as well. And certainly, you know, as we've mentioned, there's other demographics that it's not hitting, but hopefully that in the future we'll have some programs and projects that address those as well, for the most part. So I think it certainly couldn't hurt to just reaffirm that we know what our role is, we take it very seriously, and we would like to see more of more projects at all ends of the spectrum presented to us.
And I see that, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, I see that two things. One, it's not just here in Chattanooga. It's all over. The second thing is, I'm afraid it's gonna get worse. I just sold my house and closed on it in 6 years of living in that address. It doubled. Which, when my realtor said, you know, this is what we're gonna ask for it, I just went, what? I'm blessed. But you look out there who are not.
But also the reality is you may get that for yours, but if you went out to buy something else, you pay that plus some.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, you made a good suggestion. I think if you and our attorney would get together and draft something up for us to look at our next meeting, perhaps
We'll do
approve
that.
at that time.
Okay. Any other business to come before the board? If not, Chair, we entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.